One of the most common questions I get from almost always from other lawyers is, what if you make a mistake? What if you misprice a job, a service that you're going to provide? This taps into the fear that lawyers have about doing this. Oh, what if I get it wrong? What if my client takes advantage of me? What if I charge too little and then I'm going to get screwed? That's the most, really, other than how do you set your prices, the really perhaps the most common question after that is do you ever make mistakes, and what do you do? What if it ends up taking much more work than you thought? And my answer, I always answer the same way, and I think the answer surprises people. I say, oh well. I mean, again, first of all, I disagree with the concept of the question, the part that goes, well, what if it takes more work than you thought? Well, so what? I don't charge for work. I don't charge for time. I charge for the job. All right? Remember, I've said this before. We sell widgets. And the widget we sell is a case or a will or a merger and acquisition, a defense in a criminal case, a divorce. These are the widgets we're selling. That's what they're buying. All right? They're not buying your hours. They're not even buying your work or your time or your attention. They're buying a solution, a desired solution to the problem that they have. When I'm setting my prices, we talked about this in lesson 2, the 14 factors that I talk about, none of them were time. How long is it going to take me? How much work is it going to take me to do? That's not part of my calculus. So my answer to the question isn't, well, if it takes me longer than I thought, this is what I do. I say, it doesn't matter how long I take. I'm not tied to my hours. But the first part of the question is a legitimate question, and that is, what if you make a mistake in pricing? But I want to be very, 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 very clear about this. Very often I hear, it's a lot of varies, I know. Very often I hear either consultants advocate that, oh, if you're going to do fixed prices, alternative billing, you should track your time to see if you come out ahead or behind. We've talked about that before. No. You're missing the point if you do that. Because then you're cheating. I mean, then you're looking at your time, and you're stuck with timesheets, and you're not pricing, you're guessing, and you're comparing to time. And it's misleading, I've said this before, because you work differently when you're not stuck looking at hours, when you're not trapped by your timesheet. You operate differently. We operate differently at my firm, at Shepherd Law Group, because time doesn't matter. It's getting the job done. And so we do the job as effectively as possible. And that means we staff cases differently, and we approach the work differently, and we work as a team. And that's not something you can do when you're billing hourly. So the time, it's not apples to apples. Comparing time that we spend now on a case to how we would have spent the time if we billed hourly, it's not the same thing. So this idea that you compare, did we make more money than we would have billing hourly, is a fictitious concept, and one to be avoided. So the mistake is not, did we make more money or did we make less money? The pricing mistake comes up this way. After the case or job is over, we'll look back and we say, how do we do? How do we do setting the price? And the real question is, because remember, when you're setting a price, I've said this way back at the beginning, your client is going to pay a price that is equal to or less than the value that he or she puts on your solving that problem. All right? A rational client is not going to pay more than what they think it's worth. They will pay what it's worth, or they will pay less than what it's worth. And so your job in pricing something is to try to figure out what that value is and set your price accordingly. And we've talked about this throughout this course on how to do that. So when you look back, you know more information. And I say, all right, we did this case. We made $75,000. Could we have charged more? Would the client have paid more? Not, did it take more hours than we thought? Not, had we billed hourly, would we have made more money or less money? Meaningless concepts. Would the client have paid more? If the answer is yes, call it a mistake. We made a mistake. We underpriced it. We could have priced it higher. Now, maybe we didn't have enough information to do that, and so the information was learned later on, and we didn't have that ability then to better judge the value that the client would place on it, and therefore the price they'd be willing to pay. It may be. In which case, quite frankly, that's not really a mistake. That's only a mistake if the reason why we didn't have that information is because we didn't do enough to try to determine that information. Then that is a mistake. But if it was unknowable to us, it wasn't a mistake. It was just an underpricing. But that we look back and we say, oh, you know what? We could have charged more. We had a case, I'm not going to say the client, obviously, where we were asked to do, and it was a very important case for a large company, and it became clear over the course of the case that there was severe urgency. I mean, I got a call one night, and we were on the case the next morning, and it was hotly contested, and multiple law firms were involved, and it was very, very important to this client, and they were willing to spend the money to deal with this problem. And I could have priced it considerably higher. Not because I looked back and I said, oh, look at the hours we've spent. Had we billed hourly, I would have made more money. Because that's a meaningless construct for us. No, instead it was I misjudged the client's willingness to pay, the urgency of the client, the importance that this matter had for the client. And I think they paid happily what we charged them. And I'm sure they were kind of chuckling, saying, whoa, we didn't pay that much. We could have charged more. And that was a mistake. That was a pricing mistake. That's what I'm talking about.